warriors. I hope you and your preparations both are doing good, and welcome to this video analysis session of logical reasoning. Moving on to our very first passage, the successful passage of Russia sanctions bill will significantly weaken. So what author is saying that this Russia sanction bill will weaken India's negotiation position, as New Delhi will come under pressure to diversify goods exports away from the US. India is negotiating a trade deal with these EU, ASEAN, GCC, SACU, EAEU, right? So in these lines, author is saying that the US sanctions related to Russia may weaken India's position in trade negotiations while India is simultaneously negotiating with many trade deals, right? A weaker negotiating position typically results in steeper ask by partner countries. Author is saying steeper ask like bigger demands, right? India has maintained its red lines. What is red line? Like कुछ नॉन नेगोशिएबल लिमिट्स हैं कि यहाँ हम नेगोशिएट नहीं करेंगे. कहाँ? एग्रीकल्चर एंड डेयरी प्रोडक्ट्स में, इवन विद कंट्रीज विच डू नॉट साइन ट्रेड डील्स विदाउट एक्सेस टू दीज सेक्टर्स. ऑस्ट्रेलिया एंड न्यूजीलैंड however were not given deep access in these sectors during the trade deal negotiation. So now author is saying that weak bargaining power leads to tougher demands from trade partners. लेकिन India has tried to protect its key sectors, agriculture and dairy products. Now more than goods exports, US tariff have impacted investment in India. Several investors are also sitting on the fence due to ongoing rift between India and US over the trade deal. A steep 500% tariff on India for purchasing Russian oil could end up hurting investment even further. A 2025 Bank of America research note said that the primary challenge is facing due to US tariffs has been on capital flows. So main problem क्या बता रहा है that US tariffs is not so much about India's exports of goods, right? But it is about foreign investments coming to India. Right? And जब ये US puts tariff on trade restriction, foreign investors become nervous, right? They impact investments in India. Like the future business, the investors are unsure about the future business conditions, so many of them wait instead of investing. So this is what sitting on the fence means कि investors are nervous, they are thinking, they are waiting कि थोड़ा मामला ठीक हो जाए जब हम invest करेंगे, right? Now capital flows are an issue. So अब उन्होंने क्या बोला कि अगर US ने extremely high 500 tariff impose कर दिया as punishment because India buys oil from Russia, it could make the situation more worse. And now capital flows simply means money coming into India from foreign investors. ठीक है? So now capital flows are an issue which remains multifaceted and has been seen across FDI flows, FPI flows and debt related inflows. Right? So what is FDI? FDI flows जब foreign companies invest direct करती हैं इंडिया में directly, जैसे factories बनाया. या FPI flow क्या हो गया? Foreign portfolio investment, जैसे when foreign investors put money in India through stocks or bonds. And debt related inflows is when foreigners lend money to India or buy Indian government or company bonds. So report क्या बोल रही है कि all these types of inflows have slowed down or almost stopped for some time. Right? So now they are stalled. Now indeed RBI as per official data has sold 65 billion in the open market between October 24 and September 25 and also running a large short forward book position of 63.6 billion until the end of October, which has probably increased in November given the extent of pressure on the rupee, the report said. So अभी RBI ने क्या किया कि RBI has promised to sell dollars in future. Short forward book position of 63.6 billion, right? So this means RBI sold dollars and bought rupees to support the currency. So RBI also has a large short forward position for about 63.6 billion. ठीक है? So report क्या बोल रही है कि this number may have increased further because rupee was under heavy pressure. Now the report said that the recent bout of weakness in the rupee, which has weakened almost 7% in the last year has meaningfully underperformed against other currencies, has resulted in large real effective exchange rate depreciation of over 9%. This weakness, which may persist in the near term given the latent uncertainty of US-India trade deal and pressure on capital flows, can and will impact various macroeconomic variables in India. अभी ये लाइन क्या बोल रही है कि इंडिया रुपी वीकर हो गया है, राइट. लास्ट ईयर its value has fallen by 7%, right, and compared to many other countries की करेंसी से जो रुपी has performed worse. So when we adjust for inflation and compare it with other group of currencies, rupee's value has actually fallen by more than 9%. इसी को उन्होंने क्या बोला, रियल इफेक्टिव एक्सचेंज रेट डेप्रिसिएशन, राइट. अभी रिपोर्ट क्या बोल रही है कि वीकनेस में कंटिन्यू फॉर सम टाइम, ये वीकनेस चलती रहेगी फॉर सम टाइम. क्यों? क्योंकि देयर इज अनसर्टेनिटी अबाउट इंडिया यूएस ट्रेड डील. क्यों इसकी पहला रीजन तो उन्होंने ये दिया कि इसकी वजह से. दूसरा, लेस फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट मनी इज कमिंग इनटू इंडिया. फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट मनी बहुत कम आ रहा है. तो अभी तो इफ द रुपी स्टेज वीक फॉर लॉन्ग इट विल अफेक्ट मेजर इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स इन इंडिया. मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक वेरिएबल्स इनने बोला क्या क्या, जैसे कि इंपोर्ट कॉस्ट, इन्फ्लेशन, इन्वेस्टमेंट कंडीशन, ओवरऑल इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी. सो द पैसेज इज सेइंग दैट रुपीज हैज फॉलन सिग्निफिकेंटली एंड मे रिमेन वीक ड्यू टू ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट इशू एंड कुड अफेक्ट इंडियाज ओवरऑल इकोनॉमी. राइट, दिस इज व्हाट दिस पैसेज वाज सेइंग. होप यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द पैसेज क्लियरली. Now coming to the question, the argument that sanctions weaken India's negotiating position most relies on the assumption that option A, diversification away from US export inherently reduces leverage in all listed deals. Very extreme option, right? The passage does not say that diversification weakens leverage in all deals. It only suggests general pressure, right? Partner countries prioritize India's US exposure over its red lines on agriculture and dairy, and yes, B is the correct answer because argument क्या बोल रहा है that sanctions will weaken India because partners will pressure India during negotiations. और इसके लिए for this to happen, partners must believe कि जो इंडिया की dependence है on US market matters more than India's fixed limits like red lines on agriculture and dairy. So only then would they try to demand more from India. अगर वो ये मान लेंगे कि भले कुछ भी हो जाए, they will give more priority to red lines, तो फिर they will not demand more, isn't it? So B is the correct assumption. Option C, India cannot simultaneously negotiate multiple deals without US alignment. Not mentioned. Passage ने ये कभी नहीं बोला कि India cannot negotiate multiple deals at once, right? Option D is also incorrect because passage says weaker position usually leads to steeper demands, right? Not that sanctions are the only situation when this can happen. So wrong logic. Next question, which of the following most strengthens the claim that US tariffs impact investments more than goods export except? ठीक है. So option A बोलता है हमारा कि that Bank of America identifies capital flows as primary challenge with multifaceted stalls across FDI, FPI debt. Now it directly supports the idea that investments are the main impact area. तो except नहीं है, actually it is strengthening. Option A is strengthening, not weakening. RBI interventions, 65 billion sales, 63 billion forward book, respond to rupee pressure from outflows, ये भी strengthen कर रहा है. RBI selling dollars and holding backward position, right? ये क्या बताता है कि capital outflow and currency pressure which are linked to investment movement, not goods trades, right? तो B is also strengthening the claim. See, India maintained agriculture red lines even against demanding partners like Australia. अभी ऑप्शन सी क्या बोल रहा है? It is talking about India maintaining agriculture red lines during trade negotiations with countries like Australia, right? So this is about trade negotiation. This is about market access in agriculture. This is about goods and trades policy. So it does not mention investment, capital flow or investor behavior. So it has no connection to the claim that tariff affect investment more than exports. So hence C does not strengthen. So C is our correct answer, right? 500 25% oil tariff hurts investment further, and ongoing US rift hesitation, and yes, a possible 500 tariff hurting investment and causing investor hesitation directly supports the claim, right? So D is also strengthening our claim. Next question. If partners like EU, ASEAN concede on India's dairy lines despite sanctions, this would most weaken which part of the argument? All right. Option A क्या बोलता है कि tariffs multifaceted capital flow stalls, तो investment flows are unrelated to negotiation behavior, right? So A is incorrect. RBI's forward book expansion amid pressure. Now RBI currency actions are unrelated to partner demands, right? तो ये भी हमारा irrelevant हो गया. Rupees 7 to 9% depreciation from trade uncertainty. Now rupee depreciation depends on capital flows, not negotiation outcome, right? तो ये भी हमारा गड़बड़ है. Typical result of weaker position yielding steeper ask. Yes, passage क्या बोल रहा है कि weaker negotiation position, अगर weaker position है, it usually leads to steeper demands, right, from partners. So yes, D is our correct answer. Next question, क्या flaw है? What important factor the author ignore while claiming tariff hurt investments, right? So option A, stall flows might stem from global factors, not just US tariff. And yes, A is the correct answer because passage assumes that tariff are the main reason for reduced investment, right? So, लेकिन जो investments हैं that can also fall due to global factor, right? They can also fall because of geopolitical tension. They can also fall because of economic slowdowns, right? So, ignoring these possibilities is a logical flaw. So A is our correct answer. Option B, red line succeeded against Australian, suggesting resilience. B is talking about negotiations, not investment, so incorrect. C, steeper ask could boost exports, offsetting tariff. C is suggesting steeper demands could help export, which is completely contradicting the passage, right? And option D, rupee depreciation aids competitiveness despite outflows, so mentions currency benefits, but the question is about investment causes. So, incorrect. Next question. The passage would be more strengthened if partners historically ignored India's red lines pre-sanctions. ये तो weaken करने लगा, हमें strengthen करना है, right? कि अगर argument, it is weakening the argument by showing that India was already weak even before sanction, right? So A is incorrect. Similar tariff previously cost 10% plus rare drops everywhere. So yes, B is the correct answer. Why? कि अगर similar tariffs in other countries has caused currency depreciation earlier, it proves that same effect can happen in India. So this strengthens that causal chain, that A is leading to B. Right? India diversified successfully post sanctions. Now it shows India successfully diversified, which again contradicts the claim. Agriculture exports rose despite red lines. Now it is unrelated to tariff and currency impact. So D is incorrect. Next question. हमसे पूछ रहा है कि what can be directly concluded from the sentence about tariffs and investment. ठीक है? More than goods export, US tariff have impacted investment in India. Several investors are also sitting on the fence due to ongoing rift between India and US over the trade deal. अब हम इससे क्या conclude कर सकते हैं? Option A बोलता है कि US tariff have impacted goods export more than the investment in India. So A is completely reversing the meaning. So A is incorrect, right? Investments in India have been more affected by US tariff than goods export, and yes, B is our correct answer because sentence clearly says that tariffs have affected investments more than goods export. So it is clearly reiterating the conclusion present in our passage, right? Option C, there is hardly any rift between India and US over the trade deal. It again contradicts the mention of ongoing rift. Investors are actively increasing investment. Nahi, opposite of investors sitting on the fence, right? So D is also incorrect. Next passage. Now, 200 years after the Monroe Doctrine was declared by the 5th President of US, and despite the widespread doubt about its power and efficacy, the doctrine was invoked by 47th President of US. The present circumstances were, I think, not imagined in 1823. So, author says that the Monroe Doctrine was created 200 years ago, लेकिन अभी it was used again by modern US President. ठीक है? However, the situation today is very different from what was imagined when doctrine was made. Right? Now, President James Monroe, eponymous doctrine, warned European powers against interfering in the affairs of newly independent nation in the Americas. On the night of January 23rd, 2026, President Donald Trump transgressed every basic tenet of doctrine, every basic principle of doctrine, right? He used USA's military power to invade a sovereign country in the America, capture the elected sovereign country, the independent nation, right? Capture the elected president and whisk him away to be tried by a criminal court in New York. It was an astounding enlargement of Monroe Doctrine. No foreign power has interfered in the affairs of Venezuela. The power of Venezuela has elected Nicolas Maduro as president, although the outcome of election was bitterly contested. Mr. Maduro may have turned undemocratic and authoritarian, but he is not the first elected ruler to have done so. So, original Monroe Doctrine said कि जो European countries हैं, they should not interfere in newly independent nations in the America, countries in America. But अभी author क्या बोल रहा है कि जो modern US president है, he broke this rule by invading Venezuela, capturing its president and taking him to the US trial. And this is described as a huge expansion of the doctrine, right? Now the new doctrine deserves to be called the Bush. अभी जो author है वो इसको Bush Trump policy बोल रहे हैं. इसको हम उन्होंने बोला Bush Trump doctrine. The closest parallel was the he is now comparing it to the US invasion of Panama in 1989, where US removed Panama's president and became the dominant power in the region, right? So the US has a history of military intervention in nearby countries to take control. Now, President Bush Jr. became sheriff in Iraq, and 3 presidents, Bush Jr., Obama and Trump, successively became sheriff in Afghanistan. In the case of Iraq, a fake threat of Iraq posing WMD weapons of mass destruction was invented, and in the case of Afghanistan, troops were sent as part of the war on terror against Al-Qaeda and Taliban regime. Both wars were spectacular failures. In the latest case of Venezuela, the US accused President Maduro of drug trafficking and conspiring to smuggle narcotics into the US, but there are still charges unsupported. वो बोल तो रहे हैं, but there is no support, no evidence by any public evidence, right? So US often justifies intervention using questionable reasons. He is giving questionable reasons, and many such wars have failed, right? From Mr. Trump's pronouncements, it is clear that Mr. Maduro was a casualty in the pursuit of gold to control Venezuela's oil wealth. Venezuela has the largest oil reserve. So author क्या बता रहे हैं कि the author is believing that the real reason for this US action in Venezuela is क्या है? Oil wealth है, right? And Venezuela has huge oil reserves and was building ties with China, right? And the US want to control these resources and prevent rivals like China or Russia from gaining any influence, right? So shortly after the capture of President Trump candidly said that the large US oil companies will be allowed to produce and sell Venezuelan oil and make money. So the US intervention in Venezuela is motivated mainly by economic interest, right? Now the 4-hour operation coded Absolute Resolve was a demonstration of the US Armed Forces' vastly superior technology, machinery, intelligence, planning, execution. to enter another country in the middle of night and snatch the head of state from a heavily protected presidential house and without suffering any casualty belonged, we thought, to fables and fantasy, but America proved that its military could do it. The US military is the most lethal war machine built in the history of the world. Alarmingly, there is also evidence of the making of new sheriff of the world, barring China. So US demonstrated overwhelming military dominance and may be emerging as a global enforcer, right? Now, author is saying that India went unnoticed before and after absolute resolve. So, India did not, what he is saying, India did not play any important role during this crisis. Mr. Trump has already snubbed Mr. Narendra Modi twice with his claims, once on the ending of India-Pak war and next on the India reducing its import of Russian oil to please Mr. Trump. The government is so scared of earning Mr. Trump's wrath that the official statement on Venezuela did not condemn the capture of president or even mention the role of US. It was very neutral. The statement referred to recent developments in Venezuela and called upon all concerned to address issues peacefully through dialogue, as if it were counseling or on a dispute over the score at a football match. On this issue, India is isolated among the 5 founders of BRICS and from Europe. Despite the boast of Vishwaguru, India is losing voice and relevance in world affairs. As a former Indian ambassador said, what's India would not make a difference. So India is becoming less influential internationally and is hesitant to oppose US. This is what author is trying to point out over here. Alright, so overall this passage is criticizing US foreign policy, isn't it? And he is also taking a take, highlighting India's decline influence in global affairs. Alright, coming to next question. The author's comparison of Trump's Venezuela's action to Bush Senior's Panama invasion most relies on which parallel? ठीक है, question क्या पूछा, क्या similarity है? Why author is using to compare Trump's Venezuela action with Bush Senior's Panama invasion? Option A बोलता है both involved capturing an elected leader accused of drug crimes without public evidence. Wrong, because the passage does not say that both leaders were captured without public evidence. That detail is not clearly mentioned for Maduro, right? So A is incorrect. Both declared regime change as the goal via quick military operations without casualties, and yes, B is the correct answer. क्यों? क्योंकि दोनों ही केस में US used quick military action, right? The goal was to remove existing regime, जो अभी की उनकी गवर्नमेंट है उसको हटाने का था. The operation showed US military dominance, right? So this is exactly the parallel the author is highlighting, right? So B is our correct answer. C क्या बोल रहा है? Both invoked the Monroe Doctrine to justify oil resource control. No, wrong. Bush Senior did not invoke the Monroe Doctrine. Only Trump did, right? Both pivoted toward China, prompting US intervention. No, Panama had nothing to do with China influence. So D is incorrect. Next question. Which of the following most strengthen the claim that Venezuela marks an astounding enlargement of the Monroe Doctrine? ठीक है. So option A बोलता है हमारा Maduro's election was contested like Noriega's authoritarian turn. So election disputes have nothing to do with the expansion of the doctrine. Election has nothing to do with the expansion of doctrine. So A is incorrect. No non-US power interfered, yet US invoked 1823 anti-European warning for unilateral action, and yes, B is our correct answer. Why? Because originally जो doctrine थी वो किस लिए बनी थी कि foreign power, especially European countries, should not invade the independent nations of countries of America. राइट लेकिन यहाँ पे कोई भी फॉरेन पावर नहीं थी, बट इन वेनेजुएला नो फॉरेन कंट्री इंटरफियर्ड, येट द यूएस itself invaded and justified it using the doctrine. So it clearly shows a huge expansion and reversal of its original meaning, right? So B is the correct answer. Operation succeeded without casualties, unlike those in Iran, Iraq and Afghanistan. So military success does not relate to doctrine expansion. So C is incorrect. Trump plans US oil firms to exploit. So oil firms are intention, right? It shows intention, not the doctrinal change. So D is also incorrect. Next question. What argument that India is losing relevance assumes? All right. India's neutral statement equals fear of Trump, ignoring BRICS, Europe, isolation. So it focuses only fear of Trump, not relevance. B, Trump snubs Pakistan war, Russian war, oil, caused silence on Venezuela. So snubs explain context, but it is not the key assumption over here. Failure to condemn US explicitly signals diminished global voice. Yes, C is the correct answer, because argument क्या assume कर रहा है कि अगर इंडिया ने ओपनली क्रिटिसाइज नहीं किया है किसको, यूएस को, तो इंडिया की जो ग्लोबल वॉइस है वो क्या हो गई है, वीक हो गई है. दिस assumption is necessary for the author's conclusion losing relevance. Right? Option D, Vishwaguru Bose requires military intervention like absolute resolve. Now passage never says that global leaders require military power. ठीक है, oversimplified. Next question. Which of the following statement must be true as based on the passage? Operation Absolute Resolve confirms the US military's historical status as the world's deadliest force. Too strong, right? The operation does not prove US is historically the deadliest, very extreme. No other nation could replicate such a casualty-free snatch of head of a state. Again, passage ने कभी ये नहीं बोला कि कोई और दूसरा country ऐसा नहीं कर सकता है. Irrelevant. Evidence exists that US is emerging as global hegemon, excluding China through this demonstration. Now, new sheriff of the world is opinion, not a proven fact. Right? तो हम इसको भी नहीं बोल सकते. The operation success was previously unimaginable, but proves US lethally against protected targets. And yes, D is the correct answer. How? Because passage ने साफ साफ क्या बोला कि such an operation seemed impossible before. यही बोला उसने, ऐसे operation seemed impossible before. फिर उन्होंने बोला कि but US proved it. US ने बोला मैं कर सकते हैं. So this inference is the most supported one from the passage. Next question. What can be most accurately inferred about the new doctrine from the passage? ठीक है. Its closest parallel is the 1989 Panama invasion, in which US action secured regime change and regional hegemony. And yes, A is the correct answer, क्योंकि passage यही साफ साफ बता रहा है कि closest example is Panama invasion. क्यों? क्योंकि both involved regime change, right? And both showed US dominance in the region. US dominance in the region. Right? So yes, A is the correct answer. So Panama serves as the main model for this doctrine. Option B, it represents a complete departure from all prior US interventions, lacking any historical parallels. Passage explicitly mentions Panama as a parallel, so it is not completely new. Right? Option C, it prioritizes multilateral consultation before unilateral military operation for regime change. No mention of multilateral consultation. Actions are unilateral, right? It succeeded where previous interventions like Panama failed to neutralize enemy forces. Now passage says Panama was successful, not failure, so it is opposite. Next passage, ठीक है, and this arrangement, ठीक है, तो 14 persons are sitting at an equal distance in two parallel rows, ठीक है, इन्हें बोला कि 14, अब हम बता, टू रोज हैं, ठीक है, तो हमारी हो गई रो 1, रो 2, ठीक है, and row 1 faces north and row 2 faces south. तो अगर हम इसको करें तो north, south, row 1 faces north, row 2 faces south. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं, अभी हमें साफ साफ क्या बता रहा है कि both the rows are facing each other J is sitting third to the right of N. ठीक है, एक ही हमारे पास कंफर्म वो है कि J, और इसमें सबसे पहले वो इज सिटिंग ऑपोजिट टू P, यानी N और P का हमको एक डेफिनेट पोजीशन यहाँ पे बता रहे हैं. ठीक है, यानी रो 1 N और P ये हमारे पास फिक्स पोजीशन यहाँ पे अवेलेबल है. उसके बाद देखिए क्या बोल रहे हैं, J इज थर्ड टू द राइट ऑफ N. ठीक है, तो J इज थर्ड, 1 2 3 हमको J मिल गया. ठीक है, उसके बाद वी आर टोल्ड दैट 1% सिट्स बिटवीन N एंड H. ठीक है, यानी दैट मीन्स H मस्ट बी 2 पोजिशंस अवे फ्रॉम H. ठीक है, उसके बाद नेक्स्ट क्लू है I इज सेकेंड टू द लेफ्ट ऑफ L. तो बना लेते हैं अलग से इसको, I इज सेकेंड टू लेफ्ट ऑफ L, यानी अगर हम यहाँ L कर दें तो यहाँ I आ जाएगा. ठीक है, उसके बाद ठीक है, फिर हमारे पास K और M की रो 1 में इंफॉर्मेशन है कि 1 पर्सन इज नॉट सिटिंग बिटवीन K एंड M हु इज नॉट सिटिंग एट एनी कॉर्नर, यानी M कॉर्नर में नहीं है और K है, तो K और M एडजेसेंट है क्योंकि उनके बीच में कोई नहीं बैठा है. तो हमारी रो 1 तो कंप्लीट हो गई है. ठीक है, तो ये INL HJ MK. ठीक है, उसके बाद इसको याद रखना पड़ेगा. अब इधर आए हैं हमारे पास 2 फिक्स पोजीशन है. देन लेट्स क्या बोल रहा है, वी आर टोल्ड दैट 3 पर्सन सिट बिटवीन P एंड V. 3 पर्सन, 3 लोग बैठे हुए हैं P और V के बीच में, 1 2 3. ठीक है, उसके बाद ये हमको बता रहे हैं दैट 2 पर्सन सिट बिटवीन V एंड U. ठीक है, 2 persons आर सिटिंग बिटवीन V एंड U. V एंड U, यानी यहाँ पे U आ गया. ठीक है, V और U के बीच में 2 लोग बैठे हुए हैं. ठीक है, उसके बाद आया Q sits opposite to the neighbor of N. नेबर ऑफ N, यानी यहाँ पे हम Q कर देते हैं. Q sits opposite to the neighbor of N. All right, and then now 1 person between T and S. ठीक है, who is not sitting opposite to J. T and S who is not sitting, यानी S यहाँ पे नहीं आएगा, यहाँ T आएगा और यहाँ आएगा S, तो T V S, बीच में V आ गया. ठीक है, उसके बाद Q और R बचे, तो Q और R के बीच में 2 लोग हैं, ये हो गया. तो ये हमारी रो 1 और रो 2 दोनों कंप्लीट हो चुकी है बाय दिस गिवन इंफॉर्मेशन. नाउ लेट्स आंसर द क्वेश्चन. ऑलराइट, फाइंड द ऑड वन आउट, PLRV. अब अगर हमने टेबल बनाएंगे तो आप देखोगे कि P RV बिलोंग्स टू PRV साउथ के हैं, सिर्फ जो L है वो नॉर्थ फेसिंग है. सो द ऑड वन आउट इज L. हु इज सिटिंग ऑपोजिट टू S, ऑब्वियसली यही हमारी टेबल बनी थी. ऑपोजिट टू S इज K, राइट. नेक्स्ट इज हाउ मेनी पर्सन्स आर सिटिंग बिटवीन M एंड L. M और L के बीच में 2 लोग बैठे हुए हैं, वेरी क्लियरली. हु इज सिटिंग एडजेसेंट टू I? N. All right. What is the position of R with respect to T? Second to the immediate right. Second to the T, immediate right. ठीक है. What is the position of K with respect to J? It is second to the right. The correct answer is second to the right. What is the position of K with respect to J? ठीक है. second to the right. Next question. If R and N interchange their position with I and T respectively, then who will be sitting opposite to P? P के opposite T आ जाएगा अगर हम position change कर देते हैं तो. Clearly we have got the answer. All right, coming on to the fourth passage. Picture the scene. You enter a lovely clean hotel room. They are newly laundered, crisp sheets and fluffy fresh towels. Both as you sit on the bed, the cushions let out a cloud of dust and you realize the bed is covered with an unwashed bedspread that has been sat on by every other guest who has ever visited this room. It's usually slung across the bottom of the bed. पड़ा रहता है पैर के पास. So lots of them have probably put their feet on it too. So होटल डेकोरेटिव क्वेश्चंस और बेड स्प्रेड को ऑथर यहाँ पे क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा है कि दे मे लुक क्लीन बट एक्चुअली दे आर फुल ऑफ dirt and used by many people, right? Now, I hate decorative cushions and throws on hotel beds. The first thing I can do on seeing them is to remove them with the tip of my fingers and shove them in the wardrobe. Doesn't everyone? Due to often impressive efficiency of hospital corners on the bed, removing the throws can be a challenge, frequently resulting in wresting the entire duvet off the bed as I can discard offending bedspread. Don't get me started on when everything reappears on the bed the next day and I have to begin my weird ritual all over again. So author क्या बता रहा है कि he is strongly disliking these items repeatedly and removing from the hotel beds कि एक बार निकाला फिर दोबारा वो जब रूम सर्विस में वो दोबारा सब कुछ वो हाउस क्लीनिंग में सब कुछ जमा करके जाते हैं. It reappears and he has to follow the same ritual again of removing those throws and cushions out of the bed. I have a fairly normal standard of cleanliness. I am not too bothered by the occasional cobweb or spot of dust, but the sight of cushion and throws on hotel beds fills me with dread. I can't help thinking they are massively unhygienic and ultimately gross. Who knows how many other people have used them and when they were last, if ever, washed. So, author is extremely disliking it, right? Because these items seem very dirty, है ना? And he is wondering even if कभी वो धुलते भी होंगे या नहीं. It's puzzling as to why they are there. When part of the charm of staying at a hotel is promise of a clean, fresh space to sleep. We all know other people have slept in the hotel bed before us, but something about the level of cleaning between each guest helps us to suspend disbelief and allows us to forget that we are sharing a bed with hundreds of strangers. So वो कह रहा है कि जो बेडशीट धुलती है एक गेस्ट से दूसरे गेस्ट के बीच तो वो हमें हम disbelief को भी suspend this disbelief, right? We forget this कि someone else or hundreds of guests have slept on this bed. Author believes that everything else in the hotel room is made to look untouched, fresh, है ना? Now, the room is usually perfectly made up with freshly restocked mini fridge, packed up toiletries. We are made to feel as if we are opening the door to a place untarnished, like never used before by other people. So, why then on the bed, the center of all this, do they plonk this pile of old, unhygienic fabric, right? It might be for aesthetics, है ना? सुंदरता के लिए होगा. Ensure a scatter cushion or textural throw might look nice, but any visual pleasure is instantly undone by the full body cringe when you consider the volume of strangers' dust particles trapped inside it. So, this decorative cushion contradicts the hotel's claim or promise of complete cleanliness, right? In the rom-com along Camp Polly, Jennifer Aniston's free spirit Polly is seen helping free Ben Stiller's uptight Reuben from the tyranny of his multiple scatter cushion. She did this by encouraging him to plunge a kitchen knife into his useless bedding accessories. I am liberating you, she tells him, Wow, that feels really good. He replies, destroying the pillow. This catharsis. So author is giving the example from a rom-com, romantic comedy movie where a character destroys decorative cushions to feel free from them, and author relates with this feeling. He is saying this feeling of catharsis, that emotional release is what I need when facing a hotel cushion or throw at home. They might feel pointless, but in a hotel they are both pointless and disgusting. Plain wrong. Please liberate me from the horror of ever seeing them again on top of a joyfully clean hotel bed. So the author concludes by saying that decorative cushions are useless at home and even worse in hotels because they are dirty, and he wishes that hotels should stop using them or putting them. Alright, coming to the question. Primary conclusion क्या निकाल सकते हैं हम पैराग्राफ से, ठीक है? Alright. From the last paragraph, alright. Decorative cushions and throws are acceptable at home but not in hotels. The author calls them pointless even at home. They are not acceptable even at home, so incorrect. The writer seeks emotional relief from the disgust caused by hotel bed decoration. And yes, B is the correct answer because last paragraph में it is clearly said that author needs catharsis, मतलब emotional relief from those bed throws, right, hotel cushions, because they create strong disgust. So main conclusion is about author wanting relief from the negative feelings that these cushions cause, right? Hotel beds are joyfully clean only without cushions or throws. So the passage does not say that beds are clean only without cushions. Okay? All hotel decorations are pointless and disgusting everywhere. It is overgeneralizing, right, to all hotel decorations, while the passage is focusing only on the cushion and throws. Next question, क्या है key as a key flaw in the argument, all right? Equating dust to disease without evidence, and yes, author क्या बोल रहा है? तो वो बोल रहा है कि dust, है ना? And he is assuming, author sees dust and assuming that it is a danger, it can cause illness, right? So the passage gives no scientific evidence, है ना, that it can, how it can cause health risk. So the flaw is equating dirt with actual health danger. Generalizing personal ritual as universal. Now the author does not claim everyone shares the ritual. It is clearly personal. Conflating aesthetics with hygiene mandates. Now the author does not confuse beauty with hygiene rules. Hygiene is the main focus here. All right. Ignoring duvet as equally shared. Now duvets are said to be clean, so as they are not treated equally. Next question. The author primarily argues against throws by citing empirical evidence. बिल्कुल नहीं दिए गए हैं, इसलिए गलत है. Psychological disruption of cleanliness illusion via visible grime accumulation, and yes, B is the correct answer. Why? Because author का main argument ही psychological है. Cushion breaks the illusion of cleanliness, right? And they remind guest, previous guest, ना, जो उसको use करके गया है. ठीक है? So the focus is on mental discomfort, not any actual scientific hygiene. All right? Economic inefficacy, कहीं भी पैसों की बात नहीं हुई है. Cost of washing is never discussed. Universal guess revulsion per anecdotal consensus. Now author does not claim all guests feel the same way. Right? So D is also very extreme. Next question. For horror of throws on clean beds to hold, must assume, all right. So question क्या पूछ रहा है कि क्या, what assumption must be true for the author's fear of cushions to make sense? So sheets laundered per guest, enabling stranger forgetting. हाँ, यही बात तो उसने बोली है पैसेज में भी. ऑथर ये मान के चल रहा है कि जो शीट्स हैं, जो दुवे है, उसको वो रेगुलरली वॉश हो रही होंगी बिटवीन द गेस्ट्स, राइट? So this allows people to ignore the fact that others use this bed. So if sheets were not cleaned, the whole argument will collapse. अगर हम negation test करेंगे तो, ठीक है? Option B क्या बोलता है? Aesthetic gains negated solely if visibly soiled बाहर दिखने वाली धूल की तो बात ही नहीं हुई है. Guest feet contact transmits more contaminants than sitting. Now the passage never compares contamination levels. Irrelevant. Removal ritual universally feasible despite hospital corners. Now the author admits removal can be difficult. Feasible नहीं बोल सकते. Now next question क्या पूछ रहा है? Why cushions spoil the appeal of an otherwise clean hotel room? All right, so they clash aesthetically with the mini fridge. No, there the issue is hygiene. Appearance का नहीं है कि वो match नहीं हो रहे हैं vibe के साथ, right? तो A is incorrect. They trap strangers' desk, contradicting the illusion of untouched space. Yes, B is the correct answer because cushion contain dust from previous guests and this destroys the feeling that room is fresh or untouched, right? Hotels add them only after guests specifically request extra bedding. No such mention. They openly symbolize the long shared history of past occupants. Now the author says cleaning normally hides past use, right? So, all right. So B is the correct answer. Coming to the next question. The author's hatred of hotel cushions assumes which of the following? Alright, so a question is asking ki what belief the author must hold to hate hotel cushions. Hotel sheets and towels are washed less frequently than cushion. So passage clearly says that sheets are freshly washed. तो हम ये नहीं बोल सकते, ठीक है, less frequently नहीं है, opposite हो गया ये. All hotel guests universally share the author's ritual. No, the author does not claim everyone behaves the same way. B is also incorrect. Cushions and the throws are rarely or never properly cleaned between guests. And yes, C is the correct answer. यही तो वो मान के चल रहे हैं कि इनको कभी धुले ही नहीं जाते हैं. And this belief drives the disgust and removal of those cushions. Right? So C is the correct answer. Decorative items enhance hygiene more than crisp linens do. And D is incorrect because cushions are described as unhygienic, not helpful. So the correct answer is C. And we have come to an end to this video analysis session. Hope you have understood all the passages, why answer is correct and why other choices are wrong, and hope you have scored really good scores and stay logical with Vidig. All the best.